Let's talk England then with our panel. Lee, I'll start with you. Tuchel arrived to great fanfare, didn't he, a year or so ago as the man they hoped the FA would win the World Cup. He's 4 games in. How do you assess the job he's done so far?
Good question. I don't want to sit here and be negative at all. I think.
But you're going to be.
Yes, well, I am going to be criticised. You know, every single international game for how he set up, players he picked. Listen, I think, you know, we look at the Southgate era and the rest of it, and I don't see much change in what Tuchel's done so far. I think, you know, squad experimenting, but I expected maybe him to come in and really give us something different to go at. You look at the likes of Lee Carter, who came in, had a little spell, defeat at Wembley. Listen, I just think that Tuchel still find his feet. I don't know if he's, I wouldn't say he's different. He tried different players. He probably tried to be a little bit more attack-minded, and he got shut down because he's looking at, and we're talking about do so, but I think he's got to get something going quite quickly, you know, when we're approaching this World Cup. And automatically, I'm looking at John Stones maybe coming into a midfield area. I feel like we've got many world-class players, I feel, in that forward area that we could highlight, and doing a similar sort of thing to what Gareth's done, really. And that's what frustrates me, because looking at a defender stepping into midfield when we have the likes of Declan Rice, who's played there for quite some time in that midfield area, automatically I'm feeling that's a bit of a negative step back for us. We've got so many at West Ham. I know he plays in a different position for Arsenal. You know, we've got the likes of Bellingham. I think you start thinking about exciting players in that front area that it's so hard to pick. It really is. We know that Harry Kane's going to play majority of minutes because he's a leader, he scores the goals, his numbers are back into Gareth's shoes. I really do. I really do, and it frustrates me from an England fan. He needs that supplying behind, but I just feel that the way things are going, I feel like we're just where England are going to go, and I think we might have a chance going into this World Cup. But at the moment, I don't. I feel it's a little view is that if there was a real massive difference in what he's doing, then I could go, you know what?
I mean, I guess, you know, as we compare the two here, Tommy, you know, there's England seeing more of the ball, but then you've got to bear in mind that the teams they've played over the last 4 matches. High change here, as Lee points out there. Goals per game pretty much the same. Possession in these early days of Tuchel?
Well, I think from a stats point of view, you look at the screen there, it's very similar.
I suppose so, winning the ball in the opposition's final third a bit more. But I mean, have you seen much difference?
Sort of experimenting a little bit. I don't think he's got the time, Jules. I really don't. You know, early days for Thomas Tuchel. The problem I find is, you know, Lee's just mentioned there about team is, and I think if you were to hand on heart ask him, he wouldn't know himself. It seems as though he's still sort of experimenting in the summer. I feel like he needs to really nail down what his style is, what his formation's going to be. I just don't think he's got the time to do that. He needs to nail down exactly what he wants to do. And listen, maybe is hands-on. He wants to be with the players. He wants to sort of coach them how he wants to do that. He's done all of his work domestically is hampering him a little bit, because he strikes me as the type of manager. You don't get the time to do that. You see your players 3, 4, you know, games at different stages of the season. And it seems to me like he's finding that bit tough, that transition of going from club.
What's he meant to do when Palmer's out, Saka's out, Bellingham's out?
International level.
But also, I suppose, talk about this, trying to nail down his best team, you know, with a World Cup in theory less than a year away. But squad.
Yeah, I think it's just the hope, as an England fan, like Hendo mentions, you just want that excitement.
Stones dropped out yesterday, whenever it was. I mean, how can he put out his best team when he's having to...
I feel like we made a change in the summer because it almost got a little bit stale. It was the same things with names. They're world-class players, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Losing them and not having them available is an issue. But win the tournament when I think we all felt we had enough quality to win those tournaments. Sometimes we've got to slow down a little bit. It's very, very early days. But when you are losing a friendly the way they did, get all worked up. When his form in the qualifiers came up, their 9-point games hasn't been great. So, yeah, you're expecting him. He said he was going to come in free-flowing, attacking football, take the pressure from you start to ask those questions. Because, again, the level they've had to play so far in those qualifications, players that might have to step in now for the short term while the other players are not available to him. But it's an opportunity for them as well. Allow them to play like they play for their clubs, and we just haven't seen that so far. So, for me, it's about how quickly can get with that freedom, which us as England fans want to see week in, week out when they do have those.
He wants to get nailed down exactly what sort of team he actually wants, but Listen, you're going to have exciting talent though in that forward area. So I mean, I know there's lots of players that drop throughout the year, isn't it? For sure. You know, this is a good opportunity. This is their opportunity now to really go and shine. I tell you, I'm absolutely gobsmacked that have been drafted in or we're on the sort of fringes of actually getting into two.
You two have hogged it. We need to speak to the former Scotland international, Jamie Mackie, and see what he thinks. Always give me I want to come to that. Yeah. You won't be surprised to hear that I definitely want to talk about Jack Grealish. Yeah, we will come to that.
It's more interesting than this chat now, I think. They've covered all bases, George.
Grealish will come to. But
it was a good point last night. That's why I think.
It was a good point.
It was a good point. Yeah. Is that what we're going on to?
About sort of the midfield, which is a big area of contention at the moment. And, you know, injuries, etc., people's out of form. Could this be Anderson's chance to shine?
Yeah, amazing opportunity. I think that these opportunities come up.
How big an opportunity could this be for Elliot Anderson? We talk about Rice and Bellingham. We think we're all set that they're two of the three.
We talk about Bellingham, we talk about Rice. They're almost nailed on, aren't they? Well, they are nailed on to play, I'd say. And he definitely deserves it. I think he's a brilliant talent, and I think that for him to have an opportunity while one of them's out and him to play Newcastle, clearly. It wasn't a decision on how good he is that he's left. It was because of the rules now. I mean, when we talk about the position that's probably most key for us, though, they were gutted to lose him, and that says it all about him. But look at his vision, brilliant pass on the ball. But not only that, he can. The biggest concern, I mean, look at that pass. The quality that he's got is incredible. He might be a bit better, kind of the other side if they're playing a three of a sitter, and I think that's how mobile he is as well, competitive. I think he's a brilliant talent, and I'm glad he's getting his chance. But I don't think that's necessarily that's the problem. I think it's the one that sits, and I think that's so pivotal for any side, but particularly with the game. And people say for Arsenal, perhaps he plays more like an 8 and he likes to score a goal. I just think that quality that England have got at their disposal now. I think having that kind of linchpin, that centre midfielder. I personally think Declan Rice can do it, and I think that he's told that instruction that for England you might have to be a little bit more rigid and stay in front of the of the back.
Comparing to Rodri, I'm not saying that there's the same level, but Rodri does the same thing for Manchester City, doesn't he? He's a sitter.
So much attacking quality in front of you. You need that guy to sit.
But why can't he still do that? That's the thing. That's why you've got to have an understanding with your midfield partnerships in there, and that's where I think that Declan can play that role. I think at times it's almost like you're playing in that position, you're a robot. I've never thought that.
I just think that the difference of playing for your team week in, week out in that number 8 role and playing some of your best football to then go
can play that role.
I just think, again, like we spoke off earlier about Declan Rice's position for Arsenal. He's obviously done some good work to take them away from that when they go with England. I really do believe that.
I get that. The trouble you've got with that is who plays there.
And perhaps move position. Yes, we've all been players. We can all play in different positions. But when you do your best work in a certain area of the pitch...
that's what I'm saying. He's the best option. If you haven't got a defined number 6 who's best in the world, we're talking that responsibility to say, I know it's not what you do week in, week out, but you're good enough to go and do that.
Well, isn't it, that Tuchel's come out and said about John Stones?
Player. If we haven't got that, we've got to find the next best option to do that. And I'm thinking you have to give...
I mean, that says it all, really, in terms of the lack of that type number 6 type player. That profile of it then is the sort of player to break things up and give things to the people further up the pitch, the likes of Cole Palmer, you know...
For injuries, isn't the answer for that position staring in the face Adam Wharton?
Again, with what Rice has done in that position for the last 7 or 8 years, I still think he's the one with the experience of the big games, the tournament, Champions League football with Arsenal. He is a better option there than anyone because ultimately we probably have better number 8 to us. So you've got to have him in the team with his experience, his quality from set pieces, which again we didn't even use in the last tournament. You watch the benefit of the actual collective is in that sitting.
Because if he's the 6 and Bellingham's the 10, then who's the 8?
6, 8,
week in, week out for Arsenal. He's the one that has to be in the team and think the way.
PALMER, you could say Foden, and this is where this is where it stands. It's one of them, isn't it? You're throwing balls up your cane. You could say attack-minded, influential players to really go and put on a show and say, I want that 10 win a challenge or get a foul on the edge of the box and pick that pass through to Harry Kane, because I think sometimes he comes under so much scrutiny, Harry Kane. At the moment, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Eze. I think he can change a game very quickly. The way that England play with probably a bit more direct wingers, I think that little bit of flair in there and someone who's going to get on the ball and someone